celebrate Christina's birthday, and I failed to ask her how sensitive she is about turning 50. So this is actually, I'll just start with this poem. Father Time and Mother Nature are an unrelenting pair. They give you aches and pains and take your teeth and hair. Like waves pounding on the shoreline, age erodes your mind. You can't see without your glasses, and they're always hard to find. They're always hard to find. Your memories become undependable as you kicks in and out. You've now become a geezer, and that's what life's about. You socialize with geezers, you play with little geezer games. You find yourself flirting with some poor old geezer dame. Geese is Greek for urine stains. Is your flies undone. You're plagued by constipation, or you've got the constant runs. Now, as you watch your life unravel and you get this vacant stare, the only redeeming fact is you're usually unaware. So that's the birthday poem, and then we all know Christina is a dog person. So I've got, I ain't never made a fortune. My hair is white. I'm old, but I wouldn't trade my memories for a whole heap of shining gold. Whenever I get lonesome, I just hold a grand review of people, places, and dogs that I knew. I can hear the songs and stories, feel the campfire blaze, as I relive the glory of my grand old mushing days. I got to meet Christina's all of her new dogs, and so that prompted this next poem. He lay by the stove, licking places that are obscene. But what the heck? I suppose he's just trying to keep them clean. When he goes outside, he drags his wormy butt back and forth across the lawn until he's caused a rut. And when folks come to visit, they don't stick around long because he puts his nose so far up the crotch, he lifts them off the ground. He chases cars and chickens, killed the neighbor's sheep, and if he weren't my brother, I'd have him put to sleep. You know, couples have a tough time sometimes because the guy will say, honey, will you go down to the auto parts store for me? Well, that's like going to get a root canal for a lot of women, or to go down to the lumber yard. Well, the name of this next poem is Buying a Bra. You know, I'm not much on shopping. In fact, I rarely go to town. Except when shipping day comes, I ain't easily found. But today came when I had to go, and I left the kids with Ma. But before I left, she said, would you mind picking me up a bra? And I said, sure, how tough could that job be? I bent down to kiss her, said I'd be back by 3. Well, once I'd done the things I needed, I started to regret ever offering to pick up that thing. I was working up a sweat. I crossed the street to the ladies' shop with my hat pulled over my eyes. I wasn't taking any chances of being recognized. I walked right up to that sales clerk. I didn't hem or haw. I said, ma'am, I'm here to buy a bra. Well, from behind I heard some snickers, and I turned around to see at least 15 women in that store, and they were all gawking at me. Then the lady says, what kind you be looking for? I just scratched my head. I'd only seen one kind before. I figured bras was bras, I said. Well, she gives me this disgusting look and says, well, sir, that's where you're wrong. Follow me, I heard her say, and like a dog, I tagged along. We went down this alley where bras was on display. I thought I'd go crazy before seeing all that lingerie. They had all these different types that I'd never seen before. I thought I'd lose my mind before I left that women's store. They had bras that you wear for 18 hours, bras that cross your heart. They had bras that lift and separate, and that was just a start. They had bras that made you feel like you weren't wearing one at all, and they had bras that you train in when you start out with when you're small. I finally made up my mind, and I picked this black and lacy one, and I said, okay, I wrap it up. I figured I was done. Then she says, what size? I know them measurements by heart. 6 7/8. 6 7/8. Well, sir, that really isn't right. Oh, yes, ma'am, I'm positive. I measured them just last night. I thought that lady was going to have a stroke. I must have caught her by surprise when I told her that my wife's bust was the same as my hat size. You see, that's what I used to measure with. I figured that was fair. But all that got was another glare. Well, by now a whole crowd had gathered, and they were all cracking up. Lady asked to see my hat and measure for the cup. Well, once she had it figured, I gave the gal her pay, turned to leave the store and tip my hat and say good day. Well, my wife had heard the whole story before I ever made it home. She talked to 15 women that called her on the phone. Now, she was still laughing, but by then I didn't care. Now, she don't ask and I don't shop for no ladies' underwear. When I'm picking poems, I was trying to pick things that would be appropriate for this group, and seeing as we're in a dance, for music and all that stuff, I have another one I'd like to share. It's called Belle of the Ball. And I drove her all right to the shindig that night. Of course, I said it was just for the ride, but it probably bought me some dances, I thought, as I walked her proudly inside. I paid her way in, got her hand stamped, and then I was ready to shake a leg. But we were met by some guys with stars in their eyes before I'd hung my hat on the peg. One asked, "May I, ma'am?" And she held out her hand, and I waved as they went off to dance. And though she went with him, I thought with a grin, it won't be long before I have my chance. There, by the wall were some chairs, so I took a seat there, and I marveled as she two-stepped around. Her blonde hair would flow as she danced to and fro, her feet barely touching the ground. Well, an hour slipped by. There was no chance to try. Seemed hopefuls were lined to the door. But every once in a while, she'd flash me a smile, and as she waltzed past me out on the floor. Well, I was about to ask when Miss Tucker come past, insisted one fling. Well, she pert near flung me plumb out of town. I had barely recouped when Granny Cowboy swooped me up for a boss or bean. And then the shottish with Trish, who was once quite a dish. But everything up someday falls down. So except for one trip to the truck for a nip, I resigned myself as wallflower. I watched 2 flasks of booze and 1 fight diffused, and Miss Tucker make cowpunchers cower. It seemed like I sat there for days. Although I tried different ways, I could not get close to her at all. I don't know what I expect. I guess that's what you get when you come with the belle of the ball. I wished I'd stayed at the ranch. When the band called Last Dance, and I turned to see standing right there, surrounded by a whole herd of men doing their best to crowd in, was that gal with the pretty blonde hair. Well, she winked me her charm, took hold of my arm. Those fellows were sure looking sad. And she said through the noise, "I'm sorry, boys, but the last dance I saved for my dad." Yeah. Did I ever tell you about the cross-eye bull I bought? No. Thank you. Well, you couldn't put him in the show, at least that's what I thought. But one day, a friend came down and said, "Now, hold on, man, let me take a look." "Well, them eyes ain't that bad. Why don't you call him that?" His number's in the book. So, next day, I rang the vet and says, Doc, I got this cross-eyed bull. Can you come out right away? So out he comes. He looked and he thought, and he took out a tube of glass and he walked right behind that bull and shoved it in the little hole underneath the tail. And he began to blow. He blew and he puffed and he sucked and the eyes uncrossed. $50. 50 flaming bucks, I think. Now that's a tidy sum for a half minute's work blowing up an old bull's glass tube. But he had fixed the eyes. We went to Elko, won the major prize. We were trucking around the state some, and we had to come back. Yep, them eyes crossed again. But this time, I know the drill, I'll save the dough. So I took a tube of glass, and I began to blow. I blew, and I puffed, and I sucked, and the eyes stayed crossed, and I was forced to ring the vet and mourn the dough I lost. Well, out he comes. He has this knowing smile on his face. He knew I tried to fix that bull. I'd left the tube in place. So he pulls it out, reverses it, and gives it one mighty puff. Eyes rotate, sure enough. So I paid the vet, and I said, now hold on, Doc. You can't tell me it's knowing which end to blow. Oh no, Dan, you can blow north or south. But you didn't think I'd use the end you had in your mouth.
Yeah.
I think I've got time for one more. Out on the cliff's edge, further than he'd ever been before, he sat with legs a-dangling high above the valley floor. He was lost in thought while drinking in the grandeur of it all, when a gust of wind unseated him. He began to fall. It was a drastic situation. He dare not think slow, for certain death awaited on those rocky crags below. So he called upon a friend. I guess the only one he could. You know, the one we forget about when things are going good? He said, God, if you help me now, I'll quit my sinful ways. I'll do the things you'd have me do. I'll work hard all my days. I'll quit the booze and cigarettes. I'll help my loving wife. I'll spend time with the children. I'll turn around my life. I'll work to help the needy. I promise to repent. Just then, a tree limb caught his coat and stopped his fast descent. While hanging from the tree that grew on that rocky shelf, he looked skyward, saying, never mind, I handle it myself.